Welcome friends. In this video we are going to have a look how to set date and time on our Linux boxes. Now I do not need to mention that why it is important. Of course everybody knows that our systems need to be synced, and there are two ways. Either we can set the date and time manually by setting the input using the command, or we can do that by using some kind of protocol. In this case it will be NTP or Network Time Protocol. To set the command manually, we can do that using the command date, and I'll show you how we can do that. And also what we can also do is that we can even change the hardware clock of our servers. You know, the clock that is run by that is maintained in the BIOS, and it is supplied power using the small battery, small cell. You must have noticed that. Now that clock is hardware clock, and even if you shut down your system and once you power it up back on, your operating system gets the clock from the hardware clock. And the command to set the date and time of hardware clock is for Linux operating system, it's HW and CLOCK clock. Of course you need to run this command using root or sudo privileges. Then lastly we'll be seeing that how we can configure NTP protocol on our Linux systems to get our Linux machines synchronized using external network resources. Now before I do the actual configuration, let me just tell you a bit about NTP, which has been in the industry or in the network industry for many decades. In fact, it's one of the very early protocol to get our system synchronized. Of course, if you are having a network, you would want each and every machine or your network element to have a time synchronized, so that once you are having a look at the logging for diagnostic purposes or for monitoring purposes, you know that if an event has happened at a certain point in time, that point, it gets reflected or it gets synchronized with other machines as well. It's not like an event is happening at 10:30 on one machine and the same very event, because of the drift in the clock or because of the not synchronization in the clocks, is happening at, let's say, 1200 hours or maybe even 1500 hours. So in that case you will not be able to make a good judgment and good diagnosis that actually what is happening in your network. So how NTP works is that there are resources in the world which are maintained by atomic clocks. So these are atomic clocks. Let me just write this one more clearly. So okay, so I need to pick up the rubber first. So these atomic sources, these are, you can say, at the root of the NTP clocking system. So these are called as stratum level 0 clock sources. Now the clocks that derive their clock source from these stratum or from atomic sources, they are called as stratum level 1 clock sources. Likewise, if another clock that is deriving its clock from stratum 1 source, that is called as stratum level 2, and so on and so forth. If there is stratum level 16, that means that it's not sync or unsync. Now if a system is at stratum level 1 or 2 or even 3 or 4 or 5, it does not really matter much, because even though their stratum levels are different from one another, or 3 is lower than 2 or 1, their mutual difference or the time difference would very much be within a second. So even if you are trying to get your system synchronized even with stratum level 6 system, at least it would be better than having nothing. So from implementation point of view, all these stratum systems that are available publicly through the internet, they have got IP addresses, and your machine using that particular IP address and the NTP protocol gets its time from that particular source to get synchronized. Now what you can also do is that you can implement an NTP server in your environment. Let's say this is the main NTP server that you have installed in your organization, and you get all your other machines elements, which could be systems or network elements, you let them get synchronized. This could be Windows or Linux machines as well. You let them get synchronized using this NTP server so that they are pretty much accurate even with milliseconds accuracy. So now let's head over to the terminal and let's see how we can set these settings. So here we are. I've logged into the CentOS operating system, and the commands that I'll be running on CentOS operating system, they are more or less the same on any Linux distribution. So first and foremost, let me show you that the machine that I'm working on is CentOS operating system, and also I need to make sure that I have got connectivity with the internet, which we do. So let's first run the command, which is date, so that we can see that what date it is having at the moment and what is the time. So we can see that is Thursday, March 31st and 2016, and time is 2300 hours. Also, if you want to see the hardware clock, as I told you that I need to run the command using sudo privileges. If I do not do that and just run the command which is hardware clock, it says that it cannot access the hardware clock. So I need to append sudo or run this command with root privileges, or if you are logged into the Linux operating system using root account, you can simply run the command hwclock. So I type in hardware clock and we see that it is showing us the same time as that of using the date command. Now to set the time, I need to do a sudo and then command is date. We use the switch -s to set the time, and then the syntax is month, day, year, hours, minutes, second. So let's call it, let's say October 10th and 1999, which is the date. Of course, I'm giving a fictitious date, and hours, let's say 1000 hours, 00 and 0 minutes and 0 seconds. So once I do that, it is giving me that I need to add this plus sign. Alright, so this, you can get the help from this one. Otherwise, in some other distributions, you do not need to put a plus sign. So let's put in the plus sign. Let me just bring it back. And now let's enter, and it is asking me that I need to give in my password, which I did. And now let's see what is the date now. So the date has been set to 1000 hours and year is 1999. If we have a look at the hardware clock one more time, which is sudo hardware clock, the hardware clock is still at 2016. Now to set the time back to its original position, or set the actual time, what we can do is that we can use the date command again. Or what we can also do is that we can set our system time using the hardware clock, which we know at the moment that it is showing us the right time. So the way to do that is using the command sudo hardware clock, and after that 2 dashes, and these are the argument that we are going to pass, and we are going to say that hardware clock HC to says. It would do, what it's going to do is that it's going to set the system time synchronized with that of your hardware clock. So let's press enter, and once it's done, let's say if it has accepted the new time, which it has. And let's also have a look at the hardware clock. I need to give in the password, which I believe I've typed wrongly. So type it again, and we see that the 2 times have matched. Now the other thing is that let's try to offset the time of system hardware clock, and let me just paste this one so that it would be easier. The syntax is hardware clock --set again to set the clock, and then date is equal to, and let's set it to 10th of October 2001, and time let's say 10 AM. So if I press enter, and now if we have a look at the hardware clock, we see that hardware clock has changed to 2001. Again, what we can do is that we can now set our hardware clock get its time synchronized with the system date, which we believe is the correct one as we have just set it. So the way to do that is again using the hardware clock command, and this time instead of using hardware clock to sys, we'll be using sys to hardware clock. It is also used by the switch which is W. If we do that, or if we type in sys to hardware clock, it means the same thing. So let's do that, and now let's have a look. Let me just clear this one. Let's have a look at the hardware clock now. So we see that the system has come back up and it is now synchronized with our system time. If we want, we can also set our system to get its time or set its time in UTC format or coordinated universal time. Just make sure that when you are doing the configuration, you have the correct time zone and the correct time format for your particular systems. Now let's also see that how we can synchronize our system using NTP protocol. And before we do that, let me just pull up the browser and show you that from where you can get the information regarding NTP servers. So the website is www.pool.ntp.org. You must type in www, otherwise another page gets opened up. This is the official page. This is the official project for NTP. And from here you can select the region where you are residing, and based on that you should ideally select the servers which are near to you. So if you are in let's say North America or in Europe, you should select the servers from this region. Let me go to Europe, and from here I can either go to specific country, and from there I can select the NTP server, or for that particular region I can select these top ones which are available. I can even go to, let's see, if I come to Netherlands, I can select this server, or I can use this server which is for whole of the Europe region. So let's do that. Let's try to use this server which is the first one for European region. I copy this address and I come on to the terminal for CentOS operating system, and the command to do that is ntp date and then the name of the server. So let's press enter, and I need to execute this command using root privileges. So I do that, and let's just hang in there for a while it tries to get synchronized using this NTP server. Okay, so it has taken the time, and we see that the offset was 0.266. It means that the clock was already pretty much synchronized. On the other hand, let's show you one thing. Let's change the date back to, let's say, year 1999, and or maybe not that much. Maybe it start doing some funny thing. Let's bring it back to, let's say, 2012, and let's type enter. Let's see a date, and now we see that the date has been set to 2012. Now let's try to get it synchronized using NTP, and we'll see that we'll have a very big offset value over here. So let's press enter, give in the password. So once it gets synchronized, we'll see the message coming up. Now you see that the offset was this much because I had given the year which was 4 years back, and now if I try to get it synchronized again using this very source, we'll see that the offset will be very, very less. So let's try to do that one more time. Let's just hang in there for a while it tries to get itself synchronized, and now we see that the offset is less than second. If I execute the command, let's say date now, we see that the time has come back up to the actual time that is at the moment. Now our machine has been synchronized using NTP protocol, but you see I had to manually issue the command this NTP date And what happens is that after some time, because these machines are not that accurate, their clocks tend to drift apart. So what we want is that somehow the machine should automatically get itself synchronized to one of the NTP servers. Now the way to do that is the daemon, which is NTP daemon. On most of the distributions it comes by default installed. For example, on this CentOS it was there already, but I've checked it on Debian based distributions, which are and on Ubuntu as well, that it does not come by default. So it's very easy to install them over there. You just need to command apt get install and NTP, and it will get installed. Now the configuration file for NTP daemon is, let me just show you. I believe I need to run it using sudo privileges. So I type in etc and ntp.conf. Now this is the configuration file, and this server, if this machine, it can also, by the way, act as the NTP server. So over here you can restrict that what are the IP addresses which are restricted to get the time from the server, or which are the allowed ones. So at the moment we see that only local machine is allowed. Now if I bring it down a little bit, we see that the servers that it will be getting its time from are these ones, which are the CentOS pool.ntp.org. And if I bring it down, we can also set the security parameters. For example, we can set the keys so that your clients and your NTP clients and your NTP server, they get each other authenticated. Now if I bring it back up, and let me just show you this parameter, which is iBurst. Now what it signifies is that if we do not give this option over here, iBurst, it will work of course without that as well. But what iBurst does is that once your system gets booted up and it reads these lines regarding NTP, it really tries to bring itself synchronized very quickly. Otherwise, usually it takes a good amount of time, maybe around 5 to 10 minutes, to get itself fully synchronized through all of the NTP servers that you have put over here. So let's come out of the configuration and let's try to run the NTP daemon. On Debian based system, the command would be sudo service NTP start, but on CentOS the command is sudo system control, and then if you want to see the status of NTP, that whether it is running or not, it is inactive at the moment, which we can see from here. So let's try to run it. Let's type in sudo system start and then NTP daemon. And now if I try to see the status, we see that it is in running state. Now to see that what are the associations that this system has got, the command is sudo NTP query, and let's print the results. So at the moment my system is getting synchronized with this IP address, and the system that it is connected with is at a stratum level of 2, and we can see that the jitter is very less, only 6.629. So that's all there is to it. If I have other servers or other machines, I can point them to get their time synchronized with this server, and you can do the same in your environment. I do recommend that you have one dedicated NTP server in your environment so that it gets itself synchronized from outside sources, and all of your other machines get them synchronized to that very NTP server. I hope you have liked the video. Thank you for viewing.